it's procs. In this video I want to show you everything you'll ever need to know about the Warframe Wisp. I'll try to cover just about everything there is to know about this Warframe and make it as simple and as quick as I possibly can. Also, don't forget to check the video's description for build links and other important details.
In the unlikely event that I actually miss something important, make sure to drop a comment and I'll pin you at the top of the comment section so everyone can see it.
Now, to start things off, we have to figure out what this Warframe is all about. Wisp is primarily a support Warframe that excels in stealth, survivability and damage buffing. One thing that it's not that good at is nuking, at least not without the hassle of having to group up enemies first, which is not necessarily difficult, but more like boring and overly repetitive. But anyway, let's take a look at the things that define a Warframe first, its abilities. So Wisp and her companion become completely invisible while she's airborne and for a short while after landing. This way you can chain jumps to maintain your invisibility for as long as you'd like, or land, attack and move on. All this thanks to her passive ability. Keep in mind that hard landing or shooting a weapon, even a silent one, breaks the cloaking, so it is best to use melee since it has no effect on this. I'd really love to see a change where silent weapons no longer break the invisibility, especially now when we can finally enjoy primary and secondary weapons in the endgame content. Now for the support part, we have Wisp's first ability, Reservoir. It helps with survivability, mobility and crowd control for the entire squad, and the mechanics of this ability are quite simple. By hitting 1 on your keyboard you can cycle through, and by holding it down you can summon one of 3 types of flowers for a maximum of 6 at any given time. There is a red one called Vitality Mode for survivability, and it will increase your health pool and health regeneration. Haste for mobility, which is the green one, and it gives you increased movement and attack speed. And the blue one called Shock, which will stun enemies around you and around itself with electricity, dealing a small amount of damage. There's also a 4th type of Reservoir you can unlock with the help of Fused Reservoir Augment mod. I have to say that I really do recommend getting it because it will summon all 3 buffs at once. It is also an Exilus mod, so it will have little to no impact on any of your builds unless you're using Prime Sure-Footed, of course. You can learn more about Syndicate farming in the video's description or at the end of the video. The strength of all these buffs depend on ability strength and duration on ability duration mods. Simple stuff. Now moving on to Wisp's second ability, Will-O-Wisp. To all the beginners out there, it may look like a generic, mostly useless decoy/spectre kind of ability, but most of you who've tried Wisp probably know that you get the full benefit of your passive for the duration your spectre is active. You can also teleport to its location by reactivating the ability, or even hold the cast so your spectre travels faster and you teleport to it when you let go of the button. The spectre can also pass through enemy lasers undetected, so any spy mission becomes almost like a joke as long as no guards actually see it. Teleporting to a spectre also makes you invulnerable for 3 whole seconds with no cooldowns, making it incredibly powerful for endurance missions. The only other thing that could give you a similar level of protection is the Rolling Guard mod, which has a 7-second cooldown on the same exact invincibility effect. Now the synergy between these two can make you invincible 60% of the time. What I mean by that is you could potentially be unable to take any damage for 6 out of every 10 seconds you're in active combat. Now combine that with shield gating that adds another 1.3 seconds and you quickly become more and more unkillable. And you also have a special ability to make this channel unkillable. All you need to do is push the subscribe button. Okay, now the third ability is what helps you reach those big damage numbers. What Breach Surge does is it blinds enemies in your line of sight and the range of the ability to make you do multiplied damage to them. All the attributes of this ability get affected by mods that add to your strength, range and duration, so you can quite easily increase the amount your damage gets multiplied by. That was the basics, but there are 3 more really cool things about this ability. One is that it lets you teleport to your reservoirs as long as they're in your line of sight. This will cast Breach Surge in the area you teleport to with double the range, making it brilliant for crowd control and mobility if you're mindful of where and when you grow your flowers. The second thing is that Surge Sparks can spread whenever you attack, meaning that with every strike on a blind enemy there's a 10% chance, and with every kill you're guaranteed to launch a new spark that will seek and attach to nearby hostiles. And just as you think it couldn't get any better, we have the third thing. Technically, Breach Surge is not a damage buffing ability, and this is crucial for this Warframe strength. Because Warframes are only allowed to have one damage buffing ability since the introduction of Helminth system to prevent stacking of such buffs, and because with Surge Sparks we're technically not increasing our own damage output, but rather multiplying the damage that affected enemies receive from everyone, we are able to infuse another damage buffing ability to potentially become severely overpowered. And you know what else is overpowered? You smashing the like button on this video. Since we're talking about the Helminth and replacing one of Wisp's abilities, it is a perfect time to transition to Soulgate, Wisp's fourth and arguably the least useful ability. I really don't want to crap all over it since I had some fun using it when I first got Wisp. It has some fun mechanics, like you can become invisible or teleport by using your second ability at the same time, or that its beam is guaranteed to trigger Surge Sparks to spread when hitting an enemy, but none of its attributes overcome the fact that it just does not do enough damage. If you want to, you can read more about it on Warframe's wiki page. I leave the link in the video's description, but it's really not worth the time. What I want to focus on instead is what abilities do we replace it with to enhance Wisp's overall power. And the first and the most common choice is Rhino's Roar, which is not only highly compatible with Wisp, but any Warframe that is built for power strength and duration. It also very conveniently is one of the easiest abilities to get, since Rhino itself is quite simple to farm for. We'll take a look at more choices once we get to the advanced build, but for now, let's just focus on the very basic and beginner-friendly kind of a build, which you by no means need to follow exactly. So for all of you out there with no mods and no arcanes, the obvious aura choice is of course Corrosive Projection to reduce enemy armor and make them slightly easier to manage. Followed up by Continuity, Augur Message, Augur Secrets and Intensify. This way you'll have at least somewhat usable buffing abilities. Then add Streamline for some efficiency and 1 or 2 survivability mods like Vitality, Armored Agility or Steel Fiber. These mods are of lowest priority, so don't feel bad if you can't fit them. This leaves you with a wide open mod slot, which I will use for Fused Reservoir if possible, but if not, any mod will do, especially if it adds to your ability strength or duration. As for the arcanes, you can never go wrong with Avenger, Guardian or Fury, but at this stage anything you have will do. You can't really go wrong as long as you populate those slots with something that gives you even a little boost, whether it's damage or survivability. With this setup, you'll have enough efficiency and duration to slightly abuse your Will-O-Wisp for invisibility and invincibility if needed, and decent buffing abilities that should provide enough toughness for you and your squad to tank all the mission nodes on the normal difficulty star chart and allow you to farm for better gear. Moving on to the next stage is where things get a little more interesting. With the intermediate level build where you have some forma and some better mods, you can start dipping into more specialized builds. And one of my all-time favorites is this powerhouse support build that needs 1 aura forma and 1 extra V polarity. So we have Grown Power for our aura and Transient Fortitude, Blind Rage, Umbral Intensify and Augur Secrets for absolutely insane power strength of 358%, then Narrow Minded and Augur Message for extended ability duration. This is also a great opportunity to utilize that Fused Reservoir Augment mod we covered earlier. You can do so in 2 ways. First is by replacing Augur Message, which is a less optimal one because you'll be missing out on its shield regeneration. Or second, you could just use not maxed out mods with an additional dash forma. This way you're not sacrificing too much of anything and gaining a benefit of efficiency and convenience of only having to cast one reservoir at a time for all 3 buffs. This will also leave you with a wide open mod slot which you can utilize as you please. As for the Arcanes, Avenger and Aegis are my picks, but they are by no means necessary. And because this build has terrible energy efficiency, Arcane Energize and an efficiency mod in the open mod slot are 2 very compelling options. The cherry on top for this build would be a Helminth infusion of already mentioned Roar for a staggering 107% damage boost with a 1-minute duration. Another really powerful choice would be Nova's Null Star for a 60% damage reduction if you find yourself lacking in that department. This is a pretty good choice because of the setup's reduced ability range that should allow you to maintain those particles up for a decent amount of time. This build will get you through the entire star chart, arbitrations and steel path, that is if you have decent weaponry of course. It is also a go-to build for a Profit Taker support role as long as you pick Roar as your 4th ability. By the way, you can find top 5 lists of melee and primary weapons at the top of the video's description or at the end of the video, so you can easily make a complete setup. Now for the ultimate end-all be-all Wisp build. Just kidding, this is by no means the best build for this warframe, nor is it optimized for everyone, but over many hours of playing I found what works best for me when conquering the hardest content available. So we have Brief Respite or Brief Respite if you're from the Americas, that allows for vigorous abuse of shield gating. Fused Reservoir in the Exilus mod slot for convenience and efficiency, Umbral Vitality and Intensify for strength and health, which by the way is not really necessary because the power strength bonus that it provides is much more useful than the health itself. Anyway, then we have Augur Message and Secrets for duration, strength and even more shield regeneration. Continuity or Primed Continuity for duration obviously, Transient Fortitude for even more power, which you can replace with Blind Rage if needed, though I prefer having 100% efficiency while sacrificing some duration so I can take advantage of Will-O-Wisp's invincibility more often. Optimally, I would choose to go with Blind Rage and replace Augur Message with Primed Flow, but that would need another dash forma and that would mess up my other current builds, so I'm not gonna do that before I get myself another Wisp. And of course the iconic duo of Rolling Guard and Adaptation for added damage resistance and status cleansing. Infused with Eclipse or Roar to maximize the weapon damage output, and equipped with Arcane's Energize and Rage for steel path, and whatever you feel like for everything else.